Hey everybody, how you doing again? We have attorney Adam Rossen here from the Rossen Law Firm, and as my partner Manny and I have been doing since the coronavirus hit, we've been interviewing local business owners, community leaders, lawyers, non-lawyers, and just having a real conversation about what we can do to help our community through some really tough times, and tell their stories and things that we're not really hearing on the news much, right? We're hearing big macro level stuff from the news, but we're really not hearing that micro level, our community level stuff. So today we have Johnathan Arias on. He is an attorney. He is the owner and founder of the Onyx group out of Hollywood, Florida, and he has a great story to tell. And I was fortunate to meet Johnathan a few weeks ago in some networking groups that we're new to. And as soon as I heard his story, I'm like, we got to have him on because this is some really important stuff. So welcome, Johnathan. How you doing?
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate your time and having me on.
Oh, of course. This is stuff people need to know about. So first of all, give us a little background on who you are, growing up in South Florida, and let's hear your story.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in South Florida in Homestead, and it's funny, man, because nobody comes to Homestead for anything. Only time people come to Homestead is when they're trying to get to the Keys, and it's like, right. Oh, we have to stop in Homestead, to go through. But
or to the Speedway, right? Or for the one race a year.
That came later when I was in my teenage years. But yeah, it's like you said, it's one weekend out of the year, and that's it. And so, man, growing up here, not really, there wasn't much in terms of prospects, and I really wanted to escape, because I didn't see that people made anything of themselves. I mean, I've told, being a black man, I've told people that I didn't know a black attorney growing up. I knew one black doctor, and that's because my mom was a nurse. But so that's the type of environment that I grew up. Everybody around me was either an immigrant or just, it just wasn't. It was a society where I was like, man, I got to get out of here. So thank God, and in high school, I ended up on accident kind of joining the agriculture program in my school, in high school, because I thought I wanted to be a zoologist. So I was like, hey, animals, agriculture, yeah, maybe. So there was,
you could have been the next Tiger King, maybe.
I don't want to be the next Tiger King.
Okay. All right.
He's locked up and he's nuts. So
right.
No,
well, yeah. Besides that part,
Besides that, yeah. Besides all that. But anyhow, so then through that program, the government really, they subsidize education for those who want to go into agriculture, because not a lot of people are going into agriculture these days. So ended up getting a full ride to Florida A&M University. Thank God. It's an agricultural and mechanical university. So they, through their agriculture program, ended up getting some scholarships and ended up getting a full ride. And after that, I went to law school again on a full ride. Thank God, at Michigan State. And I thought I wanted to get an MBA. So I originally went with the intentions of going there for an MBA, because their B school was ranked highly. They were 20th at the time. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. So I'll get in through the back door through law school and then just tack on the MBA, and that'll be good. And what happened was, growing up here in Homestead, I didn't know anything about snow, man. So my first winter, the coldest day of that winter, it was negative 32 degrees with the wind chill. Oof. And I was like, no, thank you, my brother. And people, it's funny because people always ask me, they're like, I don't even know what that feels like. What does that even feel like? And I was like, I don't know what that feels like. You think I went outside that day?
You didn't leave the house.
No, you don't go outside when it's negative 32. For what? There's nothing out there. I was like, you could throw a bag of cash on my lawn, and I'll be like, will that bag of cash be there tomorrow when it warms up, when it's, like negative 18,
Right, yeah, exactly. Negative 18
can I get it to the single negative digits before I go outside? So anyhow, I was like, I didn't even think about it about being in school for another year. I thought about it in terms of being in school for another winter, and I was like, no, I don't want to be in school for another winter. So ended up just taking my JD and coming back home and really setting out to do what I wanted to do in the beginning, which was to be a businessman who has a law degree versus a lawyer who happens to own a business. So
Right.
straight out of the gates, man, I opened up my own doors and made lots of mistakes. Made no money my first year. It was super tough. It was funny. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I had totally forgotten about this, but I remember there was a program through the Florida bar called I think it was called something like Lawyers Helping Lawyers, where older lawyers sign up and they help out up and coming lawyers. So I remember I called the number and they hooked me up with a guy, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you check the docket?" And I was like, "Oh, how do I do that? What's the docket?" I was like, and looking back on it, I was like, I didn't know what a docket was, So basically, took a lot of lumps, made a lot of mistakes, but started my firm, and years later, now we're doing much better. And, we win cases, and
well,
things are good.
Well, and you bring up good points, because law school doesn't teach you how to be an entrepreneur, doesn't teach you how to own and run a business.
No.
And my personal opinion is an MBA is good. Now, for you, if it was free, that's even better. But you can learn a lot of that through business coaching, through mentorships, through programs. Now with the way the internet is, there's a lot that can be learned by it. So I don't, the law degree is necessary to practice law, of course, but I don't think the MBA is necessary to be a good businessman. Of course, they actually do teach you some better business principles that we don't learn at all in law school, right?
Certainly. And ultimately, that went into my that was part of my decision as well. It wasn't just the winter. I mean, that played heavily into it. But also, is this really necessary for what I want to do? And it really wasn't.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. I think lawyers, by their nature, are cautious people, right? I don't know how it was at Michigan State, but I went to University of Miami, and first day, we're getting lectured by somebody, one of the bar reps, basically saying, these are all the ways that you'll get kicked out of school and you won't get admitted to the bar. It's like, well, that's nice, right? And we have a saying in our firm, get me to yes, right? And especially with what we do, criminal defense, dealing with the government, a lot of times we deal with bureaucracy, and we say, no, get me to yes. Let's make it happen. And I feel like the state bars and just the law in general is so conservative that I love the fact that you started off right away. And that's the best time to start, because imagine if you were 10, 15 years in working for somebody else, getting comfortable, and then trying to leave to start. It's so much harder. It's a lot easier when you're fresh out of school, you have no money, and you might not have a lot of bills though, right? And you can at least take your lumps early on. So that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, it's a better way to do it for me. I won't prescribe it on everybody. But yeah, it was tough going through it. But again, when that's in your DNA, it's like it's just what you do, man. This is just part of the calling. I consider the call to the business world, I consider it a calling from God. Now, I some of the people might be like, what? Well, initially, I wanted to go into ministry way back in the day. I wanted to be a pastor. I thought I was going to go to seminary. I thought that was the path for me. And then I realized that there's more of a need for me to be in the marketplace and shining my light and sharing Christ with people day to day. Everywhere I go, and I can touch more lives that way. So going back to what I said, I feel like that's just part of the calling, and it's part of being an entrepreneur. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you can serve both worlds, just as well by having, by having multiple parts and pieces of who you are as your being. You don't need to be all in with just one thing. I mean, obviously there's some amazing pastors, priests, rabbis, anybody, right, that give that 100% dedicate their life to serving, God and serving others. But you can do that and be a lawyer and serve our community, in multiple ways. So I love it. Absolutely. So, and, as most people that are listening to this that know me, they know my story. I was a prosecutor for 2 years. I learned how to try a case. I learned how to be a prosecutor, fearless in the courtroom, but I didn't really know much about defending people. And I started my law firm after 2 years in 2008. And we took our lumps too, myself and my old partner, figuring things out. Just exactly like, and we learned it going to different courtrooms, or not different courtrooms, different courthouses. And my partner learned immigration law by just showing up and listening to other people's cases and going to conferences. So we know what it's like to try to have a little bit of that anxiety of, oh my God, and some of that doubt. So how long have you had the firm?
We're going to our 5th year, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of law have you decided to practice in?
Yeah, man. So so part of the, coming straight out of law school is you got to figure that out too, right? So initially, man, I was going to court for everything. It's like I got a good taste of what everybody else was doing, because I was defending tickets for a while, and now that became my thing. And when I went on Facebook, it's so funny. I would go back, and I went back and looked at some of my videos and how excited I would get to get like a $170 ticket dismissed, and I'd be like on Facebook, like, yeah, I'm the man. Like you can't see me out here. You know what I'm saying? I did some criminal. I did a little bit of everything, and then I settled on initially immigration. And the story behind that is funny. This young lady I grew up with, I hadn't seen her for years, and then I come back and people are like, hey, Patricia ended up going to law school. She's an immigration attorney. She's doing really well. So then I went to see her. Her office is in Homestead, and so she was like, hey, your son is the same age as my son. Why don't you come to my house for this weekend? We're having a birthday party for him. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. I pull up to her house, and I'm like, oh snap, like all the toys, like just incredible house, cars and everything. And I'm like,
so you're like, I'm gonna be an immigration lawyer.
I'm going into immigration now. I guess the decision has been made for me, so let's do it. And then so I got into that world, and honestly, Adam, I didn't enjoy it, man. It's
hard.
Yeah, it's emotionally taxing. It's there's a lot, man. There's a lot, and the administrations change rules. I'm plugging in my charger. That's why my phone is moving. But administrations change, and they change rules, and that adds to frustration. And really, man, you gotta deal with talking to families and being like, hey, man, there's nothing I could do about your dad getting deported right now, and that's tough. Or there's nothing I could do about, your mom. You're not gonna see her again until you can travel out of the country. And I didn't want that. And so I ended up picking up an eviction case from somebody I knew growing up, and I totally messed up the case. She doesn't know this to this day, unless she watches this. Like, this case took like 3 months, whereas now, we could get an eviction done in, in about a month and a half, depending on various factors. But anyway, the point is, I did that, and then later on, somebody approached me, a realtor friend of mine, and he was like, hey, I'm doing these eviction cases, and they end up producing leads for me. Can you handle this for me? And I was like, sure. So I ended up taking all these eviction cases that he ended up setting up through a Google campaign, and it's Eviction Miami-Dade, and so I kind of became Eviction Miami-Dade, and that just led to me just handling breach of contract. So mostly related to commercial and residential leases. But now I do all types of litigation around breach of contract, and and that's my world. So I'm a litigator. Every day I litigate, and mostly again a breach of contract related to commercial and residential leases.
Good. And yeah, I mean, I know firsthand how taxing the deportation or removal defense cases can be. My old partner that I started my firm with 12 years ago, that was what he learned immigration, and we're not partners anymore, but we're still great friends, and it's hard. It was hard on him. It's still hard on him. It really is. So, but see, that's great, because it's not like you were born or growing up thinking that you had this passion for handling landlord-tenant, for commercial, evictions, for breach of contract, and you just kind of figure out, and you kind of work your way. And I have always said you kind of stumble into some things by putting yourself out there, a little bit of luck, right? And just being in the right place in the right time, and then having kind of the assertiveness to take advantage of an opportunity that arises. You got to see the opportunity, then you got to go for it. And not be afraid.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Can I say something about that for your listeners? I think that's important what you're saying, and it takes a little bit of I don't know if I can say balls on your podcast, but it takes some balls.
I was going to say it, but I was being nice, so you can say it.
Okay, sure. It takes some cojones, right? Because I was talking to my wife about this last week, and I was just talking about how you can go into something and how it takes some gumption. It takes a little bit of balls to say, I'm going to stop all the progress I've made, all the work and years that I put into this, and I realized that this is not the right thing for me, and I'm going to go in another direction. And I was telling her that I remember going to college, being a food science major, again, the agriculture background, and thinking when I got to my first lab, the first day I was at FAMU, and being like, all right, I have lab today. Like, this is it. This is where I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to do my thing. And then around the middle of the semester, I was like, yo, lab sucks. I hate going there. I can't wait to leave. I was like, oh my gosh, every Wednesday. I still remember it was on Wednesday. Because my friend Cletus always used to say, oh man, Wednesdays. I hate Wednesdays.
That Wednesday lab.
And lab together, right? And then it was the same thing for me with immigration. I'd done it for years. I was known for it. People, even now that I don't advertise, I still get calls for it, because you have that repeat business, and to say, Adam, it was deeper than just stopping. It was the name of my company. My company was not the Onyx Group initially. It was Arias Immigration Law. So I had to rebrand everything and say, okay, now, at the risk of seeming a little unstable, like, everything that I built and everything that I was doing, we're just stopping that, and now we're going in this direction. But ultimately, I knew the future that I wanted for myself and my family, and I didn't see myself getting there in the way that I thought I could through immigration. So, breach of contract and litigation was.
And look, a lot of lawyers, I mean, it's a hard job, because we're dealing with other people's problems all day, every day. And you got to enjoy what you're doing, because if not, we're going to burn out, right, as lawyers. And if we burn out, then how can we be effective and help other people with their problems and issues? So, I love it that you have, it seems like you've always had that fearless attitude. But before we talk about what you're going in, where the firm has gone, the new direction before COVID and now during COVID, there's something, and I know we didn't plan on this, but I want to ask you this. Because you are a litigator, you go to court, and you mentioned, earlier, just not growing up, not seeing any black lawyers, right? Or any real minority lawyers, or somebody that can take you under their wing. We're both men, so I've never been confused for the court reporter, but I can tell you, I know a lot of female lawyers that have stories about walking into a deposition, walking into a hearing, go, oh, the court reporter's here, right? And with that implicit bias. Yeah. So for you, as a black male, as an attorney, as somebody who does litigate, goes to court, whether it was criminal, traffic, now all civil, immigration, have you ever experienced that, where you were confused for the defendant, or you were confused for a clerk, or for somebody else not whereas the default wasn't, hey, are you the lawyer on the case, right?
The stories are endless. So let me share a few. One time I could remember, it was actually a consultation. So this was a prospective client, and so I think my receptionist had gone home or something like that. So this might have been the last consultation of the day. And she maybe even came after hours, and I just waited for her. And so I sit down at the desk, and she sits down, and she's like not saying anything, and we're like looking at each other. I'm like, all right, so tell me what's going on. And she's like, well, will the attorney be joining us? And I'm like, I am he. Like, right. You're looking at him, and she's like, oh, I thought you were the assistant. And I'm like, no, I'm the attorney. So that was one. But that was a prospective client, and I chalked that off as just having a young looking face. I have a beard now, and that's on purpose, so that
me too.
Right. But going to the court, yeah, man, absolutely. So in certain courthouses, we get certain privileges, like we don't have to take off our shoes or our belt. So a lot of times, I go through, and then I'm like, they're like, oh, you are you an attorney? And then I have to show my bar card, even though I look very attorney-like. Okay, I give that to them doing their job.
Right. I mean, you're in a suit. You got the briefcase. You look the part.
Right. But then going to the clerk as well, and I felt kind of bad for doing this afterwards. I was like, I shouldn't have done this. But we also at the clerk, we press a different button. We press the button that lets us skip everybody. And she's like, like this line is for attorneys. You can't come here. And so she came at me, and I was like, yeah, I understand that. And I kept going, and she's like, are you an attorney? And I was like, yes. And then she was like, can I see your bar? And then before she finished, I was like, bam, and I whipped it out like in her face. And I felt bad about that after, because that's not, you could probably tell, being on the phone for half an hour. I'm a fun-loving guy, I try not to be a jerk. But that time, I guess it was the buildup of all the frustrations of all the years of being called, like a clerk or or the defendant or something. I was just like, here's my bar card, bam, and I said it loud in her face. I was like, bam, and then after that, I tried to like be nice to her, like, oh man, like I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, man, I plenty of stories where people, they were incredulous, and then afterwards you're like, oh, but you look so young, but you this, every time they that happens. So yeah, man.
So then, yeah, and I've been fortunate to never really have to experience that. The only time I've ever experienced is going down to court in Miami, when I don't go through in the criminal courthouse in the Gerstein building, when I don't go through the back entrance for lawyers. Sometimes it's just faster, or I don't want to walk around the back. And I get frustrated when they don't recognize me, but I'm not there that often. So and a few times I've barked back, and they're like, well, we don't know you, and you're going through the regular entry.
And I was there a lot, man.
I want to throw the card at them. So, if that happens to me this much, right, it's okay to be frustrated.
Yeah, it happens with clerks, with everybody, man.
So, But before we move on, one other thing, what advice would you have, right? So now, you've worked so hard to get where you are, in a position of power, a position of success, a position of community leadership. So what advice would you have for young minorities who might be interested in the law, or even just curious in the law, but maybe not have kind of the gumption? I like that word, gumption. That, the gumption that you've had your whole life to just kind of go out there and be fearless. So, what advice would you have, right? Especially with what's going on in today's world, to make our community a better place.
Yeah, man. I would say the most important thing in any career is to be true to yourself. So yes, like people used to say this, like, yeah, we need black. So I went to a historically black university in undergrad, and people always used to say, oh, we need blacks in agriculture. That was our major. We need blacks in this. We need black. Well, truthfully, we need black professionals, period, everywhere. We need black engineers. we needed a black president forever. We got one, you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
who knows when we'll get another one. Hopefully, not this time around, obviously. But, the point is, man, you got to be true to who you are and what you want to do. I like being an attorney. I think that by God's grace, man, I'm good at it. He put me here, and I'm in my place. But you have to have that conversation with yourself, because it's not all roses. Like, people think that it's gonna be like, the TV, and it's
right.
not. It's ultimately what you make it. Like, the Rossen firm is where it is because you worked hard. The Onyx firm is where it is because I've worked hard. But that working hard, nobody had to put a belt to my behind. It was like, yo, this is what I want to do because I believe in what I'm building. And it goes beyond the actual law firm for me. For me, it's like I said, it's a ministry, and it's also what I'm putting back into the community. So that's what I would say, man, because you can make it, quote unquote, make it, because that term is relative too. I mean, what making it to me might be not me making it to you. Whatever. The point is, you can make it in any profession. There are individuals who are making impact, and they just have their phone and they're YouTubers. You know what I'm saying? And there's people who are mechanics, and they're impacting their community and providing mechanic services for widows and single mothers. So that's the way I look at it. Because if we're gonna fight the battle of we need blacks in, fill in the blank, then we're never gonna be done.
Right. Okay. That's great. That's great advice. Great advice. I love it. So let's talk now about, you had a big move a few months ago, right?
Yes.
Before COVID. So you, instead of me telling about it, why don't we hear from you? I just want to hear about where you moved, why you moved, and what that process was like, and how you handled it with, a law firm where law firm were traditionally supposed to be in a building all the time, show up, handle, be in that office, right? And you kind of went against the trend before it was kind of cool to do stuff like this over Zoom. So I want to hear all about it.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So first of all, when I first started my business, I felt like God was leading me in this direction to set up my business virtually, but old habits die hard. And you look around and nobody's doing it this way.
Right.
So there were things that I felt that I should do, but I fell into a rut of setting it up like everybody set it up. But there were some things that I did that helped me. For example, I had a policy of we're not keeping paper. So the two most important pieces of equipment, I say this all the time, two most important pieces of office equipment was a scanner and a shredder. And we had one filing cabinet. It was tiny, and it was like, there's some things that you can't shred, but a scanner and a shredder, and everything is going into the cloud. Because I would go into these law offices and I'd see walls. There was just walls of filing cabinets, one after the other, and I was like, can't we have this stuff like uploaded somewhere? So that's the first thing. That's way back when I first started. But then fast forward, I set up an office in Homestead. That did well. We wanted to move our family to Coral Gables. We were doing better, and we opened an office in Coral Gables as well. So we had two offices. We're in the new house for this. This was the first weekend, and my wife approaches me, and she's like, "Hey, I think God is leading me to go to medical school in Antigua." And I'm like, okay. So she goes. There happened to be a seminar that morning, and that's why she felt like, this has to be a God thing, because she researched it, and that morning they probably have a seminar twice a year. So she goes to the informational session, and she's like, I think this is it. So we prayed about it, and sure enough, we felt like, this was the move. She gets in, and mind you, this is the first weekend we were in this new place, and about 3-4 months later, she's gone, and I'm there.
And this was a house you bought or rented?
No, we were renting first. Okay. So thank God we were renting first, because this was. We were homestead our whole lives after coming back from college. So, we're like, okay, let's give this Gables thing a shot. And so from the moment she got in, or even before then, I was like, I need to virtualize everything I'm doing. So everything from, court appearances, I had to think like, okay, this is where I wanted to be when I started. But like I said, old habits die hard. So now I will physically be unable to just be like, you know what, I shouldn't, it's really irresponsible, for somebody who has my bill rate to just be going up to the courthouse for this reason. Like, it's way more responsible to pay this coverage attorney a couple bucks. But you know what, let me just handle it, and that let me just handle it is the dangerous thing in your, and
trouble letting go sometimes.
Exactly.
Lawyers.
And I was a part of this coaching program, and they said, it doesn't matter your title. When you're doing the work of a receptionist, if you're picking up that phone, you are a receptionist. And at that moment, you're making $10 an hour. You're not billing your regular bill rate. You're making $10 an hour. And when you're opening mail, you're working as a secretary. It doesn't matter what your name says on the wall. You're a secretary. And so they really put it through our minds to really be an attorney whenever you want to be, whenever you're supposed to be an attorney, and really be a CEO, be the owner of a law business rather than, just be an attorney in a law firm.
Right.
So then I got myself a virtual assistant, or I might have done that while I was in Homestead, but really I knew that I was going to have to lean on it. So there's this company called Get Staffed Up. It's two attorney friends of mine. They started it. They have staffers in the Philippines and staffers in Mexico. I got one from Mexico. I had a Filipino staffer, and I ended up getting two Mexican staffers for Spanish. So then I am putting more weight on them and saying, okay, well, how does it look to give them assignments? And so then I started using Trello and using different communication means to give them their work assignments, and then be like, hey, just knock this out.
Right. And the first time you give them an assignment, it's hard to let go, but then you realize they do it just as well as you can, and it frees you up to be the CEO, the lawyer, the visionary, the person who's responsible for growing the business. And then you go, oh, okay, not so bad. This can work.
And it takes a lot of time to train in the beginning, but that's kind of with any position. Yeah. But with this, it's a little harder because you can't say, oh, just come to my office real quick. Let's just talk to this. No, it's like, hey, let's jump on a Google Hangouts real quick. Let me share my screen. And then it's like, okay, I don't see that. Where is it? And I'm like, okay, let me I'm sharing my screen. You see this? Oh, okay. I go here, so it takes time, but once it's rolling and you figure it out, and Adam, man, that feeling, I still remember the first time where my answering service might have, that's another thing. I got an answering service. My answering service got the call. My foreign staffer called the person back. They took down the information, told me what it was. I signed off. I was like, yeah, it's one of those cases. She took the payment, everything, and I was like, I did no work, and there's money in our account right now.
It was like a hallelujah moment.
And that's when I realized I gotta write this book, man. I gotta, this is the way forward. You know what I'm saying? How do I take that event and systematize it? And that was it. And that's where the Underwear Millionaire came from. It was from that event where I was like, I wrote her a text back like, yeah, you're right on that. Sign her up for this service. And then I was like, man, how do I systematize that? And that was it, man. So there were little hacks I implemented along the way. I work with a paralegal here so that my clients can come in and sign documents if they need to sign documents. Even if I'm away. So I was here for 4 months after my wife left, and I officially left in November. I did a few test runs.
That's November 2019?
Yes.
Okay.
So I did 2 test runs where I was over there. I think I left on a Thursday, so it was like a half of a Thursday and an all of a Friday. So it's like I'm totally out with remote access. And then finally November, I left, and man, nothing broke. Everything worked
Right.
out. And then have coverage attorneys. They go to court for me, and everything works out. And then I would come back when I had some of those, special clients. Let's call them special clients that you're
Right.
like,
We all
I need
do.
to
We
be.
all have them.
Okay, you know where I'm coming from. It's like I can't pawn this off on anyone else because this person right here,
Right.
like they drive me nuts, so they're gonna drive. I can't do it. So I fly back and forth. For maybe fly in on a Thursday or on a Wednesday, do some networking those 2 days, go to a hearing or a deposition, and then fly back. And that's essentially what I do. And so if I could, a perfect segue into the so then the three there are three tenets. This is the core of the book. There are three tenets of underwear entrepreneurship, and to explain the title, the Underwear Millionaire. Now we're all familiar with working from home and working in our underwear. And I was
Right.
like, man, this is the way I want to. This is the way I want to work. So there are three tenets, man. Number one is we're 100% mobile. Not that we have to be anywhere else, but we could be if we choose to be.
Right.
All right, it's number
The
one.
hurricane hits, right? We can be somewhere else, right? Obviously,
Right.
Coronavirus, whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. Or your wife gets into med school in Antigua. You know what I'm saying? So number two is we work less than 10 hours a week, so 2 hours or less a day. So that's number two. And then number three is you have a sustainable budget. Underwear entrepreneurs have a sustainable budget where their revenues exceed their expenses. So if it exceeds your expenses by $1 and you're working less than 10 hours a week and you're anywhere in the world, you're in Thailand because that's where you want to be, then you're an underwear entrepreneur and you're doing fine. And that's the vision, and that's what I'm writing about, and that's what I'm building. There's no BS because I'm my own case study.
Right. Yeah. And so, how far along are you with the book?
So so I don't know what it translates to in book pages, but I'm 22 pages done, and so right now I'm at 8 chapters.
Perfect. And have you had to revise any of it based on coronavirus and what's going on? So
well, not revise it, but I was like, and that's part of the reason why I'm like, this might take a little bit longer because I'm writing a chapter on how coronavirus didn't take us by surprise. It was something that we were. It was just another Monday. What happened was I flew in for my grandmother's 100th birthday. She turned 100.
Wow! Congratulations to her. That's amazing.
It was awesome. Right. It was awesome. And I never buy my return ticket because I don't know what type of opportunities, networking, or whatever is going to happen. So I don't buy my return ticket until the morning of or something like that. Anyhow, so the things happened with coronavirus, and I was like, man, I guess I'm not going home, for another week or two. And then, fast forward to June, and I'm still here. But that Monday, after I didn't come home, I thought I was going to come home that Sunday. After I didn't come home, it was just a regular Monday for me and my staff. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, if I'm writing a book on underwear entrepreneurship, I should write about this real world event that affected the whole planet and talk about how we navigated it. And so I'm writing that chapter now.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great because exactly, you are your own test study, and now this, coronavirus happens, and while most or a lot of law firms were in a complete tailspin for weeks, you were just, up and running, business as usual. Now, has your family come back to South Florida, or are they still in Antigua?
So I traveled with my 2 kids for the party. My wife was in med school, so she didn't come for the party. But Antigua got their first case that Friday, and she was on the very next flight on Saturday. I was like, oh no. Once she told me it took her friend an hour to check out at the grocery store, I was like, nope. So So yeah, man, we're all together.
Good.
I flew in, that Thursday, and she came in.
Good. Now, as far as business has been going, in my field in criminal defense, we've seen a huge drop off, which was to be expected if the police are not doing proactive policing, if bars, restaurants, clubs are being closed. That's a lot of our clients, right? Are just that, sometimes mistakes happen when people are social, right? If you're cooped up at home, I mean, sure, there has been a huge rise in domestic violence cases, which is, as a society, is not a good thing. But arrests have been down. I personally think that arrests will be up and higher than they were in the end of Q3 and definitely Q4 2020 versus 2019, when people get back out and start being more social. I think there's going to be some significant mental health issues that are going to be long lasting because of this, some significant substance abuse issues that are long lasting from this. And I think for me, obviously, business will come back and there'll be a lot of people that will be able to help. But in your field, I know residential evictions have pretty much been stayed. And I think even today, the governor extended that through now July 1st. So how has that impacted your business? How is it going with commercial? What about just other breach of contracts and civil litigation cases? What have you seen?
Yeah, man. So I talk about it, man. Like, my answering service gives us a daily digest of all the calls that came in, and there's some definitely on the weekends. The weekends, we still get calls, and there are definitely times where they're like, "Hey, we ain't got nothing to tell you, man." Like, it's just a blank email.
Right.
It says like no forms were filled out this weekend, which they have to script their form, and there's certainly days like that where they're like, "Hey, nobody called in," and it just is what it is. People understand that they can evict anybody, and that was a good portion of our business. I'd say 40 to 60%. But thank God, there's still breach of contract, and litigation is still going. Judges are having
still people fighting over money. Right.
Right. The root of all kinds of evil is money.
People will always fight over money.
Right. So, but yeah, man. So you're right. On July 2nd, it was set to expire. DeSantis extended the moratorium until July 1st. And commercial leases, even though they're not covered, the police still aren't assisting with evictions. So
with the service of process.
Yeah, with the writ of possession, with delivering writs of possession. So yeah, man. So there's that's all paused, and we've been all breach of contract, thank God. And it's been paying the bills. But man, when things open back up on July 1st, it's gonna be crazy, because Adam, how many people are not paying their rent? I mean, it's crazy. Like, my clients, I hear from them, and I'm just like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't do anything right now. My hands are tied." But when things open back up, it's gonna be freaking crazy. Right.
It's tough all around. It's tough on the landlords, especially the small landlords. It's tough on the tenants. We've seen it with our clients. We have a lot of clients on payment plans, and the last few months, we hear the stories, and of course we're being flexible with our clients, because we have to. I can even tell you, for us, we were in a bit of a growth mode. So as I've always kept a very lean practice, trying to really high profits. I've seen a lot of waste. Us lawyers, traditionally as a whole, since we don't have great business experience, there is so much waste in law firms. And so I've always kept my practice very lean, but we've been in a bit of a growth mode, fortunately. And so we moved to the office down the hall in this gorgeous new suite, 2,600 square feet. So that's a big expense. We've grown now to, me, not in addition to myself, 5 other employees. And that all happened January, and we're rocking and rolling, right? We're like, 2020 is going to be even better than 2019 was. We're on this kind of hockey stick growth even. And then this stuff happens, and our industry is if restaurants getting closed is the step one, then we're we're 1A or 1B. We're right behind. So, in our clients. So, we've had to pivot and adjust. And luckily, even our landlord was good with working out a deal, a temporary deal for us, because I think there's going to be a lot of businesses, right? Small business, which is the backbone of America, which just won't exist in 6 months or 12 months. And we got, PPP is there, and there's certain things, but that's limited in scope. Yeah. And I think we're headed towards, it's going to be a little longer than people think. But then again, I think business owners like yourself and myself, entrepreneurs, community leaders, are going to be the ones to get us out of this. And, that's why we've done, part of it was just being completely bored at home. I'm not able to take depositions. We're not going to trial. Thinking of other ways we can kind of help. And so what have you done, before we wrap this up, what have you done with maybe, your list or your clientele? Have you kind of done any other marketing or pivoted towards helping them, or, just what have you been doing differently since the coronavirus?
Yeah, man. So a couple things. So number one, like, you can look at the bad, or you can look at the good, right? So like how I met you, that would have taken a lot for me to go all the way up to Coral Springs, for a lunch. But now it's on Zoom, so every morning I'm online, just on Eventbrite, and just looking who's having a Zoom meeting, and let me just pop in, and meet somebody. And then these things, this isn't the first one that I've done. I've gotten invited to a couple of interviews like this. In addition to that, I've been doing more videos. So just taking my camera and being like, hey, this is what's going on with the moratorium. I put on a video yesterday because of that. So doing more videos on that. So those two things have been important, but also taking my existing client list and doing what we call in the coaching business that I was a part of, smile on dial calls. So hey, I'm just checking on you. If this is for current clients, former clients, current clients, and also referral partners, and finding out how they're doing, because what I've realized is that Corona affects different people differently. So and you don't think about it until you get on the phone with them, and them just knowing that you care enough just to find out how they're doing, it makes a difference. And then a lot of times I'll be like, hey, yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you about, this issue that I was having, or, my cousin needed help with, yada, yada. So one friend of mine, as an example of, you don't know how they're being affected by Corona, he does payroll processing, and as dumb as I am, I didn't even think like, hey, a lot of businesses aren't paying people because they weren't open. And he was telling me how one of his businesses, they're a restaurant in malls, and malls were all closed. So there were no employees to be paid because they only exist in malls. And basically, like, that was a big portion of his business. That was one of his big clients. So making those calls, being like, hey, how you doing? How is business? And then, of course, with clients, hey, especially older ones, it's perfect with COVID. I was like, hey, I know you're a little bit older, no offense, but, I was just checking on you, seeing how you're doing. I know you're in the vulnerable population. You're taking care of yourself. You got yourself a mask, and just call them, see how they're doing. And it just gives you an excuse. So those are the things that I've been doing, and it's made a difference.
Right. Well, exactly. And that's, I think it all boils down to that's being a leader, and that's developing relationships, deeper relationships with clients, referral sources, just other lawyers, people and I think that's what being a leader is all about. You don't know, but I was a high school basketball coach for 10 years, and that's kind of the stuff that we told our kids. You have an option, and it's the only way to do it, especially if you own your own business, because we have a responsibility to, again, help our clients, help our community. So I'm with you 100%. We did that again. We've done that a few times. We probably got to do it again now, especially because it's ever changing. But and you hear about we've had clients just so thankful to know that we genuinely, we had no update on their case. We weren't selling them anything. We weren't even really saying, hey, we're still here in case you ever get arrested, right? It's just, hey, how are you? Are you, it's, how are you? Are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? You sure? Let us know, whatever it is. And just, because we're all in this to help people. And, if you don't have loyal clients, then you can't have a successful business, and loyal referral partners.
And then also, man, like I had extra bandwidth, in terms of mental bandwidth. And this is where it all comes from. Like it's all the old noodle, as one of my law professors used to say. And so, man, if you're not busy working on work, then you could think of additional ways that you could help your practice. And I'm coming out with two big ones. And one is going to be a course, and the other one is going to be a product. And when that's ready, I'll let you know about it.
Oh yeah.
For sure. But yeah, these two things they're going to change the game in terms of how we do evictions and even property in Florida. And so I think that's important too. Is I like to listen to and watch this guy David Goggins, a Marine, a former Navy SEAL rather, and he always says, you could be Mr. Poopy Pants, or you could say, okay, this is what life is giving me. And it's like giving me a time to think. I'm here at home working on these cases, but also I have more time to think. What can I do for my practice? And so those are the things, man. And I'm not trying to make light of situations that people are going through. There are some people going through some real tough stuff and real drops in revenue. But all I'm saying is, that there are some opportunities for us to rethink the way we've been doing things. And this is certainly one of those opportunities.
And we get so used to getting in the rat race, and not just lawyers, but people, everybody. People I've been hearing, complaining about this being Groundhog Day. But if you think about it, our lives in January and February were just a different Groundhog Day, right? It was the same, just a slightly different rat race or different kind of daily grind, whatever you want to call it. And this has been great. And people do need to, for certain things, people do need to be able to take a step back and just think, spend 4 hours alone. Luckily, now that we're open up a little bit, maybe you can go to a park, be socially distant and get alone from people and just think and kind of think about, vision out what your life wants, what you want your life to be, what you want your career, your business, whatever, what you want to be, and kind of take a step back and just breathe for a second and just think. And not just for lawyers and entrepreneurs like you and I, but for everybody can learn from that and do that.
There were some big companies that were launched during the Great Depression. So it's kind of the same concept. And I think one of the biggest company in my career is going to come, because of COVID, because of during this time here. Right. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's always opportunities, always. So I love it. And even, how we met with doing networking groups. I mean, I'm a bit of an introvert, and it's so much easier. Instead of driving someplace and being in an awkward room, you just hop on Zoom and like, hey, everybody, what's up?
I did it this morning, man. I looked through the internet and just sent it to my assistant, be like, hey, sign me up for this one, sign me up for this one, sign me up for this one. She does, and then I just show up, and it's another one of those things where you just take advantage of the situation, the opportunity that this thing is presenting to you. And so, again, not making light of, people are really having a tough time, some business owners. But again, for me and for others, if you figure out a way that you can come out, like I tell my friend all the time, you could go. There's a Bible story where it's like these guys were thrown into a furnace, and they when they came out, they said, man, you were in the fire, but you don't smell like smoke. And that's our goal. My friend and I, he's a business partner of mine. I say, man, we're gonna come out of this fire, and we're not gonna smell like smoke. Like, we're gonna figure out a way, how we can leverage the situation. And I got a client right now. He was in some trouble, owed some people some money, made some bad deals, and and then he figured out a way to leverage the COVID situation. He's brokering some deals with for COVID like materials and things of that nature. And when I talked to him, I was like, man, you're really figuring out a way to, like, take advantage of the situation where again, you can come out of the fire and not smell like smoke. So he's brokering some deals for some tests. And the point is, I think there are ways that, if you think about it, sit down and get quiet, man, you could come out, if not on top, at least better than just being a Mr. Poopy Pants and just sulking.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So, and you know what, when we're done, I'll send you an email about some other groups that I've been in, if you haven't been in them already, because I've, let you know. Yeah, so that's perfect. I mean, we talked for a while. I think it went real well. I think we got a lot of great information for people listening to this. What we'll do is we'll put the full thing out. We'll cut it up to give you some, little bits and pieces to promote. And for everybody listening to this, we hope you enjoyed it. Just some real talk for some, real business owners in our community. And we're just here working, hustling, trying to help, and make our place, better through some of these tough times. So Johnathan, where can anybody who wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. They could always go online to onyxgrouplegal.com, and they could find us online as well at the Onyx Group Legal on all the socials. And me personally, you can find me Johnathan Arias or Johnathan MOG on Instagram or Twitter. And one thing, I know we're kind of closing, but I thought it was cool because I did the same thing. You were offering some legal help to protesters in light of the George Floyd. I did the same thing, and I'm ended up getting a pro bono client. Awesome. So I thought that was cool. I saw that on your website or something. I think your newsletter. You might have come out with social media.
Could be our website.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's all about. Is helping people that need the help. And I believe taking a position, taking a stand.
Exactly.
So awesome.
Dope. Super dope.
Yep. Cool. All right. So that's that's our meeting or our talk with Johnathan Arias from the Onyx Group. Again, I'm Adam Rossen from the Rossen Law Firm. All criminal DUI defense. You know where to find us on social media, RossenLawFirm.com. And great talking to you, Johnathan. And I'll send you that stuff afterwards. And man, I love talking to you. We'll have you back on when the book's done, and anytime you want to come back, because
Eviction University is coming. It's going to be big.
Well, we all know horror stories from LZ, right? From the big nationwide company that does that stuff. So it's good to have a lower cost Florida specific local option. So we'll definitely get into that when it's done too. I want to hear all about it.
All right, man. Let's do it.
All right. Take care, Johnathan. Good talking.
Take it easy.